Match 9, Kiryu vs. Gigan, Millennium, by Thomas Singleton. The terrain was flat and barbaric. Only looming, jagged mountains could be seen amidst the area where two titanic monsters were present. On one side of the battlefield was the mechanical behemoth that closely resembled the abomination that laid waste to Tokyo in 1954. While on the other side stood the intergalactic cyborg whose only intent is the annihilation of the human race. A loud shrieking cry escaped the cyborg's beak as the space monster identified as Gigan ran out towards the mechanical leviathan that stood before him. Kiryu answered Gigan's cry by opening his metallic mouth, which was rippling with plasma energy, and doused the air with a swirling wave of power. Gigan's crimson eye flashed as the cyborg leapt to the air, avoiding the plasma beam that passed beneath his feet. Kiryu's maser cannon collided with a canyon that stood erected out of the ground and blasted into two. As the remnants of the canyon plummeted towards the ground, Gigan had ascended to the bright sky and looked down upon the machine created by man. Controlled entirely of artificial intelligence, Kiryu's warfare tactics were top-notch. The machine's amber, glowing eyes observed Gigan as the glowing gem on his forehead began to absorb particles of light. A digital cry escaped Kiryu's metallic lips as the machine's artificial mind was confused by the unusual event that was occurring before him. Soon a beam of energy left Gigan's forehead and slit itself deep in Kiryu's armored chest and began to remove its armor at amazing speeds. The metallic skin around the area that was being exposed by Gigan's energy beam began to glow bright orange as the metal began to melt from the intense heat.
Why, Kiryu, this is a Safe for Work podcast. Shame on you. Kiryu's like, let's get it on. I didn't know Kiryu could just take off his armor like that.
Yeah, with Gigan's help, of course.
Or that he even had armor to begin with. I don't think, does Kiryu even have armor?
If you count his metal body as armor, sure. But
okay.
It's very loose. But
yeah, okay.
Pass,
the crimson beam soon faded as torrents of smoke burst from Gigan's wings, and the cyborg stove straight towards Kiryu. Kiryu's sensors were reporting the damage until the machine lifted its head at the last second and felt the impact of Gigan's hammered claws. The Mecha Godzilla of the new Millennium was knocked off its feet and slid across the ground until coming to a stop. Kiryu's razor-sharp claws scraped the ground as the mechanical lifeform slowly rose to his feet. But just as Kiryu prepared for another Gigan encounter, a cyborg was nowhere to be seen. Radar that was equipped into Kiryu's optic eyes scanned the area, searching for Gigan. As Kiryu's alarm systems activated and whirled his head into the opposite direction, Kiryu flew by and jabbed his hammered claws into Kiryu's face.
You read that wrong. As Kiryu's alarm system activated and whirled his head to the opposite direction, Gigan flew by and jabbed his hammered claws into Kiryu's face.
Let me try that again.
Go ahead.
As Kiryu's alarm system activated and whirled his head into the opposite direction, Gigan flew by and jabbed his hammered claws into Kiryu's face.
That works.
Because apparently Kiryu can swivel his head like Showa Mechagodzilla. Kiryu's arms pushed themselves high enough off the ground so they could at least see Gigan flying away. The target was locked on, and right after the rockets burst from their compartments and seared through the air, leaving a trail of smoke in their wake. Just as quickly as they left their ports, the rockets struck Gigan's flying form, and a shower of sparks enveloped the cyborg, causing mild annoyance and severe eye pain. A split second later, Kiryu saw Gigan dive headfirst into the ground, and upon impact, the ground itself raised high into the air. Gigan covered in the form of dirt and smoke. Gigan was able to recuperate and prepared for another strike. However, Kiryu once again locked into Gigan's position and wasted no time carrying out his next assault. Pass. Banner. Banner, oh banner.
Banner.
it was muted? What? Why? Why was it muted? Bright flashes of energy torpedoed out of Kiryu's mouth and streaked towards Gigan's position. While standing up and trying to think of what he'd do next, Gigan was caught completely off guard by Kiryu's assault and was knocked off his feet. Only the high-pitched screams of the cyborg could be heard, and strangely enough, this pleased Kiryu. Raising his claws and pointing them directly to where Gigan had fallen, the artificial life form prepared to assault Gigan once again. Gigan's claws raked the ground and pushed up, now kneeling on his knees, redundancy, and bracing himself for the inevitable. Dozens of energy beams were released from the 2 laser cannons mounted on each wrists and pierced Gigan's hide. The only feeling Gigan felt was pain. But as the energy beams continued to puncture tiny holes into his hide, Kiryu opened his mouth and fired the laser cannons. The twin beams that twirled around the other in a single second struck Gigan's golden scales. Gigan stumbled back and fell into the side of a canyon that supported his weight. Already the cyborg urged itself to fly away and forget about fighting Kiryu, but Kiryu's onslaught had not ended. Laser cannons, missiles, and energy beams continued to pour into Gigan's form in a scalding fashion. Rearing its hind legs up and using the only ounce of energy it possessed, Gigan charged at Kiryu. Even when he was being bombarded by a variety of attacks, missiles bounced off his thick hide and blew up in thin air as the cyborg approached his metallic foe and wielded his hammered claws, and knocked Kiryu across the face. A loud, clamoring sound echoed across the distant terrain after both bone and metal met in an unsporting fashion. A sonic cry escaped Kiryu's metallic lips as Gigan and continued to swing his hammered claws, further placing dent in Kiryu's armor and making the robot retreat. Alarms flared in Kiryu's sensors, ordering for it to create a plan fast, but already Gigan had successfully knocked Kiryu off its feet. The ground shuddered as Kiryu's body bounced off the ground and rolled on its side. Pass.
There was no movement as Gigan slowly crept towards Kiryu, who remained motionless. But before Gigan could raise his hammered claws and prepare to slit them deep into the Mechagodzilla's circuits, Gigan observed its surrounding area. Through the canyon environment was a large and perhaps a few miles wide. It was only a small portion of the island it had landed on. Within its line of sight, Gigan could see large mountains in the distance covered with grass and vegetation. Gigan could even sense the life of other monsters that dwelled in separate areas. It was almost as if this island was a monster island, but Gigan soon looked down at Kiryu and released a shrieking cry as particles of light glimmered around the red gem on his forehead. Just as the energy beam tore through the air and was going to strike Kiryu with its full fury, the rocket boosters on his back and legs came to life and Kiryu blasted out of harm's way. Soon Kiryu was hovering around the air and observed Gigan, who was doing a good job at railing the ground with his energy beam. When the cyborg learned that it wasn't Kiryu that he was firing at, it was too late. Kiryu's rockets pierced the air and detonated against Gigan's thick hide. Dense smoke and tiny sparks of explosions covered Gigan's body, distracting him. The component on Kiryu's chest opened up, revealing an opening that was soon glowing with a bright orb of light. Soon bolts of energy dazzled around the glowing orb, and a blue aura began to glisten around Kiryu's chest. Just as Gigan's cycloptic eyes found Kiryu, the cyborg was taken back and sensed fear. Every natural sense in Gigan's body urged him to run, but it was too late. Gigan backed away until a large canyon held him at bay, and the screaming cries of Gigan echoed across the area. A meteor-like object burst from Kiryu's chest, signaling the launch of the Absolute Zero cannon. Gigan's shrieks stopped, and the area was dead silent. The canyon that held at bay was a huge block of ice, which contained the frozen corpse of the cyborg itself. Satisfied by its initial victory, Kiryu turned and walked away from Gigan's graveyard. No more than a few hours later, both man and beast were aware of Gigan's demise occurred on Monster Island at the metallic claws of Kiryu Mechagodzilla. Winner, Kiryu.
Wow.
That was damn good. That was damn good. Long paragraphs and...
Is it me, or did Tom sort of forget which Gigan he was writing halfway through?
Yeah, that was the thing. That was the thing. That was kind of the big thing that I point out, is the fact that apparently, despite the fact that the match is labeled as Millennium Gigan, and despite the fact that the banner uses Millennium Gigan, the Gigan written in the match is Showa.
Oh, was it supposed to be Showa already?
Yeah, again, remember, this was back in the Toho Wrestling Monster Federation days.
Of course.
So yeah, why this made it as a KWC is beyond me.
I actually considering the fact how the match ends, I'm actually going to attempt to write a sequel to this. Because I mean, technically, even though yes, the episode Zero Kingdom was used, but based on the description, all Guy can do was get the Godzilla final war stream and should be frozen in a block of ice.
Yeah. Gigan's not really given much, and just kind of like the end, he's just sort of kind of like, oh, absolute zero. Okay.
I guess it's dead then.
Yeah, it's just kind of an average match, but at least I'd say better than the ones we've read thus far. So that was Kiryu versus Gigan, and we will see you guys in match 10, Mothra versus Rodan.
Which Gigan is it though? We're not sure.
Will you?